Well, greetings to all you at Northway that I haven't met yet. I do know a bit about your church. I've been there a number of times and have gotten to know and love Jay Passavant and Scott McCabe and Dan Chevron and a few of your other friends there. I really have a high regard for your church and for the philosophy and the vision that I find there. I suppose I should give you a little bit of information about myself. My name is Glenn Murray. I live in Grass Valley, California, which is a suburb of Sacramento, California. I live in the foothills of the Sierras, a wonderful setting that I like to come home to, although I travel a bit. I spend about a month a year in Asia and around the world, typically. But this is a great place to come back to. So we're here today with your staff filming this for you. I was born and raised in a pastor's home. My father was an evangelist at times and a pastor at other times. But somehow I became a rebel through that process, a typical pastor's kid experience. I rejected all of it at 12. I remember I made a mental decision that I rejected emotionally God and my father and the whole family, and didn't tell anybody, but just basically checked out emotionally. But at 16, I was old enough and big enough to challenge my father and told him I was leaving. I didn't want to run away in the middle of the night. I was just going to leave. Didn't like God. I didn't like him. And frankly, I'd never met anybody in a church experience that I would want to grow up to be like. They just didn't seem like the kind of people that I wanted to become, which was arrogant, I'm sure, and a very rebellious young man. But for 10 years, I ran from God. In that process, got married to a wonderful lady named Mary Ann, and we have currently been married 48 years. Have two great children, Brenda and Tina, who have 4 children and 2 children. I have 6 grandchildren. They live close to me, so we're a very close family here. We spend a lot of time together. Part of my journey that began spiritually was when I met a guy named Harold Fickett in Hawaii. I was in the submarine service at the time, and I met a pastor named Harold Fickett Sr. The first thing I remember noticing about him was he was fun. He was great to be around. I enjoyed him very much, and I began to think, if I ever follow Jesus, I'd like to be like Dad Fickett. He became a second dad to me, and I called him Dad. And over a 2-year period, Dad just loved me into the kingdom. He was a wonderful man. And Mom Fickett, too. I shouldn't forget her, but Dad was the one that really moved towards me. Over a 2-year period, I came to Christ. I got out of the service. The only model I'd ever known, if you're serious about Jesus, is start going to church and do all they tell you to do. So I did that in a very good conservative church in Sacramento, California, and shortly was teaching Bible studies and working with Campus Crusade and Navigators and CVMC. I led Young Life Clubs for 11 years, and I was as ministried as you could get. I considered myself as disciplined and as devoted to God as anybody I knew. But the problem is that it really created me a self-centered, self-sufficiency, I should say, became a Pharisee. And that was discovered when a friend of mine named Dick Halverson said to me one day, "I think you know more theology than the apostles knew." When he said that, it started a change that sent me in a different direction. I wanted to discover what I was missing. What is it that the apostles had that I didn't have? Dick had said, "You know more theology than the apostles knew," and I began to think about it. And without really being arrogant, I said, you know, I do know more than they knew. I know Romans backwards and forwards. They didn't have Romans. And I know the Revelation, and I know the greater explanation of salvation by grace that Paul brought. They didn't have that. So I know more theology than they knew. But after he said that and I began to process these thoughts, it became clear to me that they had something I didn't have. They had an intimacy with Jesus that I'd missed in all my learning. And so I began a journey, and it continues through today, to try to understand what it means to walk in the Spirit and to be intimate with Jesus. And that's what we'll probably talk about as we have these sessions.